This video was sponsored by Summoner's War, link in the description. Summoner's War is one of the most popular mobile turn-based RPGs, and we're here to celebrate its 7th anniversary with over 110 million downloads on the Google Play Store and App Store. With a huge global community, it's one of the most successful esport games. The game features over 1,000 unique monsters to awaken and collect, a customizable Sky Island, and weekly in-game events to be a part of, and different dungeons to explore. There are 3 big events going on that you want to get in on. By playing between April 16th and May 7th, you can receive 107th anniversary exclusive scrolls for free regardless of location in NU or AU. All users can get them. There's also another special coin event going on where daily logins allow you to garner special currency that can be used at the special anniversary shop for massive rewards. Finally, there's a separate dancer event going on too. All you have to do to enter is download the game using the link in the description, like the official Instagram post, pick between Mav or Rika, and then record a video and post it on Instagram or Facebook using the hashtags Wishdance and Summoner's War. You can check out the official Instagram post for more details about that dance event. Summoner's War has been a sponsor of the channel before, and I've had a ton of fun playing it myself. I hope to see you all there. Thanks again to Summoner's War for sponsoring this video. How long is too long? That's what I've been pondering for a while now. It's a fascinating question when you look at the discourse around some of my favorite series. Firstly, I have always heard that One Piece is way too long to get into. Over 1,000 chapters, 950 episodes, it's completely insurmountable. To figure out if it's actually too long to enjoy though, we have to ask another question. Does something's length give it inherent value? As I mentioned in a previous video, I'm currently rewatching all of the One Piece anime, leaving the English dub playing in the background while I do my research, grade papers, work on my homework, cook, clean, and do pretty much everything else in my daily life. Admittedly, it's a little easier considering I've watched or read it before, but it's not impossible. And knowing where the story will go and seeing how seeds are sown way in advance of long payoffs, it's truly remarkable to experience again. For example, I recently finished the Thriller Bark arc, a somewhat of a lesser appreciated point in the series due to it being sandwiched between 2 phenomenal arcs and having a less than compelling antagonist. But in that mix, this arc not only has satisfying reveals to previous characters' motivations, but it also lays the groundwork for some of the current events going on in the One Piece manga, being nods to Lola's lineage, information related to Wano Kuni, Kaido being name-dropped for the first time, the importance of Shusui, and a casual mention of Captain John, and so much more that really isn't apparent while you're reading or watching, but is incredibly rewarding when you go back to experience this thing again. I say this because One Piece's length doesn't give an inherent value. While the length can be daunting, each individual arc has a unique starting point and ending point, and they all build off each other. Kind of similar to this other little-known series over here with individual story arcs. Could One Piece have been condensed in some ways? Absolutely. But that doesn't make the journey of the Straw Hat Pirates any less valuable. Everything is still progressing towards the one goal, the One Piece, and with more and more clues dropped here and there, it would be pretty difficult for Oda to mess this up. Regardless of what lies at Laugh Tale, the journey per arc has still held up on its own merits, and I've enjoyed it. You may have noticed I've been talking about One Piece a lot more recently. Well, make sure you go and check out my new limited edition Shuck Pirates merch on Crowdmade. Get it before it's gone forever, because once this deal is over, it'll be completely sold out. You can follow the link in the description. But recently we've had a couple of things that were pretty unsatisfying to experience. Things that had long waits and intentionally or not spit in the face of their target audience. I've ragged on The Last of Us Part 2 before time and time again how subverting expectations just for the sake of subverting expectations does not make for a good narrative. You could see these choices as bold, but when they don't result in a simultaneously engaging experience, they aren't worth their salt. Moreover, a 7-year wait time to get the experience we got was certainly too long. And you can only build up hype for something for so long before you hit significant diminishing marginal returns. A perfect example would be the Joestar Inherited Soul Event. Hyped up for a half a year beforehand, a 3.5-hour long episode of Joestar Radio that had a smidgen of details about the new voice actress for JoJolion, 1 PNG, and that's it. No new information at the time of recording this video about the Stone Ocean anime. And after 3 hours, in the middle of the night, only for 15 or so minutes of interesting new content, this event was way too long and was not worth the $44 price tag. And extending something out just to give yourself an extended pat on the back and tell yourself how your own great work is just so amazing only makes me less excited for what's to come. So by this point, you should realize I'm asking this question in 2 ways. How long should we wait for something like a revelation or a conclusion to a character arc in the story? And how long is the source source material as a whole. I'm of the belief that if you want me to invest time in a narrative, a video game, hell, even this video you're watching right now, there better be a point to it. And that brings us to JoJolion 106. Spoilers ahead. JoJolion is a story that does not need to be the longest part of JoJo's. Many arcs have been needlessly extended, which wouldn't be a problem had there been more substance to them. The Endless Calamity arc was leading to a finale. With this most recent chapter, around 2 years of real-world time dedicated to this one arc alone. And what did we get? Honestly, it's a roller coaster of a narrative that could be super amazing and super disappointing. In chapter 106 specifically, Toru finally got hit by the explosive spin. That's something that should have happened 3 chapters ago. The new Rokakaka that's been built up for the last 10 years may have potentially just been eaten by the antagonist, and if that were true, well, that goes against his motivations to sell the fruit, but whatever. Oh, Kato's back after 3 years of absence from the story. She was just in the garage, you know, literally hanging out, hiding while everyone was screaming in pain and dying. I do really like JoJolion, but as I've been saying for a long while now, it really needs to stick the landing, and at this point, I'm beginning to doubt Araki's ability to do so. I could always be wrong. I know, I'm just some random person on the internet. I do genuinely hope the best for this story, but I'd like to lay out why this chapter did not work for me, and how this trend really turns me off to the rest of the story. And you might have other opinions, and that's great. You can share them in the comments below. First major problem, Toru supposedly ate the fruit. There's always the possibility of another fruit being around, but if that were the case, that undercuts the entire purpose of this encounter lasting several years of JoJolion's runtime just to fight over one pot. In chapter 101, Yasuho ate one of the 2 fruits and used the equivalent exchange on Joshu to heal her arm. I initially didn't like this decision because the existence of 2 fruits made it viable such that both Holly and Tsurugi could be saved from their own diseases. However, thinking about it, that choice actually grew on me. Now, it forced the characters to choose who gets it, the faction that Jobin has sided with or the faction that Josuke and the gang are sided with. I honestly got really excited to see how this would play out, but instead, now that the fruit is supposedly gone, Toru, against his prior motivations, ate it to survive an explosive spin, and then immediately got hit again by an explosive spin. So that makes the entire interaction completely pointless. And what happened to the countdown of the fruit? Has the fruit been eaten? Does time just freeze while the Wonder of You is going on? The countdown's been gone for a couple chapters. In the wise words of Aeon Star, you will never reach the flash forward. Now, I keep saying supposedly because it's portrayed to the audience this way, but the discourse online is assuming there's another fruit just laying around somewhere. Maybe, in the short period of time that Jobin had the branch, he gave it to Kato, who was hiding in the garage, and said, "Here, Mom, just take this small sliver of branch and put it somewhere. You know, if I need it, if I turn into a big puddle of blood or something." But if there's another fruit, that would be even worse and not satisfying in the slightest, because then what was the point of the whole struggle other than to arbitrarily kill off characters in somewhat disrespectful ways because the story needs to be wrapped up? And this has been a consistent problem with Araki's writing since part 3. Avdol being brought back after being killed just to die again. Narancia dying in part 5. Everyone dying in part 6, even though it's sort of story that mattered. Hot Pants dying in part 7. This is not something uncommon in JoJo's. Now, potentially, Kei, Jobin, Rai might have all fallen into this situation because there is nowhere left to go in the story if the fruit is gone. The curse is meant to be broken, and it was supposed to be broken with the fruit, but now the fruit is gone. So what now? Well, Kato's back to do something we don't quite know yet. I've seen theories online of her fusing with Jobin, and honestly, that is so hilarious to me because those people are stretching further than Wonder of You's range. Ah, yes, you see, Kato's hair changed to be similar to Jobin's hair, ergo, Kato-Jobin fusion confirmed. Even though we've seen Araki update character designs, like Kei, when reintroducing them back into the story, let alone the fact that we've been with Toru for 2 years at this point, and his hair went from this to this.
Skip it up and that up.
This chapter wouldn't have been so bad or confusing had there been more dialogue. For a JoJolion chapter, it felt significantly lighter than the previous ones, and that made the 2-month wait for it just feel so meaningless. Had the amount of actions and dialogue been sufficient for a 2-month wait, I don't necessarily think it would have been nearly as unsatisfying to me. Now, there's potentially a continuity error with the fruit being in the pot in one panel and then being in Toru's hand, him eating it while walking towards Yasuho in another panel. If that is the case, if this is actually clearly a continuity error. That is really embarrassing on Araki's part, and I'm honestly wondering how his editors let this one slip up. This should not have been an overlooked thing. Maybe he meant for the fruit to be there in one panel and not in the next panel to sort of ding you on, hey, Paper Moon King is activating its ability once again, but how many times have we used that excuse at this point, right? How can we as the audience know if anything we're reading is actually real when the excuse of, oh, it's just Paper Moon King can be given at any time? That doesn't make sense to me. Now, this online discourse about JoJolion has sort of turned into point scoring about Kato's return, and everyone's saying this chapter was just exceptional because all the theories were being proven right, and Araki never forgets, and then so on and so forth, right? I would just like to ask, even if you're right about a prediction in a story, does it make sense for the characters in the story, and does it feel rewarding to the reader? Because things can make sense for characters, but not be satisfying to the reader. Let me give you an example. The prospect of Joel dying in The Last of Us Part 2, I know, spoilers, but whatever, everyone knew it was gonna happen, right? It's been memed to all hell. Going into The Last of Us 2, I avoided the spoilers. I didn't know how it was gonna happen. I had the thought in the back of my head that Joel was going to die. When I saw it in the game, do you think I thought it was satisfying to kill the main character of the last game in the way they did? Not at all, because of how poorly they handled it. And I'm seeing the same thing in Kato's reintroduction. And having Kato as main Jofo undercuts the tension built up between Toru, Josuke, and Yasuo, because Josuke and Yasuo have little to no character interactions with Kato at all, and we don't know her involvement with Toru yet. Kato could have been reintroduced into the story in a way that wasn't a blatantly obvious ploy to sell more copies of Ultra Jump next month, and if she is the true Jofo and not Toru, who is Josuke's current foil, then what are we supposed to take away from that? It's not that I don't want her to be the main Jofo, but currently she doesn't have a strong enough motivation to warrant her position as main Jofo. This was a character introduced 3 years ago for a blip, and then never heard about again. Jobin as the main Jofo would make more sense than Kato, but he's supposedly dead, though if you look at JoJo Wiki, it keeps changing his status with every new chapter. So how long is too long? 10 years to tell this story is too long. I think 22 chapters alone on Wonder of You is too long. I think 3 years to reintroduce Kato in the way she was reintroduced, with no dialogue, no nothing, her just materializing, is too long. Now keep in mind, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure as a whole has been running for 34 years, and 10 of those years have been dedicated to JoJolion alone. This isn't me being impatient or anything. This is the longest running story, and had we had a clear end goal, it might be easier for me to see the through line. As much as we don't like to admit it, Jofos, the main antagonists of the part, are a major driving factor for the enjoyment of many readers and watchers of JoJo. And throughout most of the parts, there have been countless compelling, daunting, intimidating villains that keep the audience's attention. JoJolion made a choice to more or less remove that and build up intrigue, but it loses some of the narrative vision when you do that, when you don't have that end goal in sight. And I am fully convinced, no matter what Kato's ability is, it cannot compare to the bustin' and broken ability of Wonder of You, which seemingly destroyed all power scaling in the JoJo's universe, which also may have just been defeated by unlocking an OP ability that Josuke inherently had within him, even though he didn't know it. Remember when Johnny had to train months to master the spin? Those were good times. You want to go to a story that does have a clear end goal. In the same amount of time, the Straw Hat Pirates have garnered a grand fleet of 8,000 pirates, collected half of the map to the One Piece, and even grown Luffy and the rest of the game beyond the characters they were 10 years ago. I only keep bringing up One Piece because I think the way it handles the long-running narrative structure is significantly better, even though it has its own flaws. But at this point, my hype is basically killed for JoJolion. The reason I don't want JoJolion continuing down this route is because I don't like how the spin doesn't feel earned, or I don't like how characters are brought back just to be dispatched immediately. Yes, this makes it sensational for a monthly reader, but looking back at it as a whole is borderline incoherent. And I might be in the minority when it comes to having this opinion, but it looks like an incredibly difficult challenge to write your way out of this situation with a satisfying resolution. If we do end up reaching the flash forward, it's just gonna be some level of bullshit. We've already seen what the most powerful stand in the entire series can do, and that stole our goal away from us. What more needs to be told? The curse still has to be broken. I mean, the only way I see it happening is either a modification on the traditional Higashikata sacrifice, or there being another fruit that just materializes out of nowhere, like Kato did in this chapter. I will continue to read JoJolion because I want Araki to prove me wrong. I do want this to be a good story, but I don't think I will find the conclusion of JoJolion when it comes in the next 20 chapters or so to be as compelling as I initially thought it might be. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I put a poll on the community tab, and I'm very much in the minority of believing that chapter 106 was more disappointing than it was satisfying. Not that there weren't any good things in this chapter at all. I really do hope for the best for Araki. I want him to succeed in making this story coherent, instead of having these characters just feel relevant for the situation and them being dispatched later, like we've had that with Ojiro, we've had that with Kei, now potentially Kato. Again, I seriously hope it doesn't go the way I'm thinking it might. I really hope I'm wrong. But Araki gonna do what Araki gonna do. And if you're fine, and if you guys like it, no shade to you guys. But I do find it really hilarious that people won't give One Piece a shot, but will also fulminate over how intricate and coherent JoJolion is, when in the same amount of time, hell, even the same amount of chapters, it couldn't accomplish nearly as much as Oda could with his story. But maybe that's not the point of JoJolion. It is a more complex narrative structure than many of the parts before, and that could dictate how some of this plays out. I don't know. I've spent way too long talking about this chapter. This video is too long, so I hope you have a beautiful doing, and I'll see you all next time.